everyone, welcome to another episode of Real Faith Talk Show. I am your host, Monique Groves, and if this is your first time watching me, I just say thank you. I know you have so many options out there. If you do not know me, I'm not a pastor, I'm not a preacher or anything like that. I'm simply just a sister in the Lord that was saved several years ago, and so I just use this platform to share the different things that God has laid on my heart. So again, if this is your first time listening, I say thank you. For those of you who are returning, thank you so much for your time, your support. I really appreciate it. And just thank you. All right, guys, we have another good episode in store today. And again, I'm going to be sharing my testimony. And today is a little bit different. Today I'm going to be talking about, I used to date a witch. I used to date, my ex-boyfriend was a witch. So today's video, I'm going to be just talking about that relationship, things that I went through, and then how God delivered me out of that relationship, how I got delivered and set free from that. And just, I want this to just be encouraging because I think, again, there is power in our testimony. And it's so weird, but I didn't know how I was going to do this, but I just feel like, again, God is just unctioning me to just share. And so yeah, that's what this video is going to be about. So I'm going to start at the beginning. So I was not raised in a Christian home. I was not raised in the church. I was pretty much raised by my mom. She was a single parent. My father was not in my life. He was strung out on drugs. He had an alcohol addiction. So it was just me, my mom, and my sister growing up. And so I had access to a lot of worldly things, a lot of worldly, music, worldly television, just worldly, just very worldly. And in my last testimony, I really shared how, I was very sexual. I was a very sexual young girl. And so I'm not going to cover that in this testimony. If you didn't catch that episode, go, watch that. But when it came to the opposite sex in general, I really did not have a whole lot of, education. I really didn't know anything. I just my mom was she was very beautiful. She had a lot of, she's still beautiful. She had a lot of different boyfriends. So I just didn't really see like a stable relationship. A lot of the relationships that I saw were very, some were very dysfunctional, very chaotic. So I just did not have I didn't have like a good foundation of what a healthy relationship, what it looked like. So when I was in high school, at this point in my life, I was very focused on school. I was very goal oriented. I was very, very focused. And so, but I didn't really have a good understanding of what healthy relationships look like between men and women. My older sister, she dated different guys. I saw her, she's about 3 years older than me. So I saw her date, a lot of guys. My mother, she dated, she had boyfriends. Some came and went, and then she settled down, got married. But in high school in particular, I was really just to myself. I was just very focused on going to school, doing well, getting good grades so that I could, go to college, get into my career or whatever. So I was very just to myself. I did not really date I didn't date any boys. that was more so like earlier when it came to like boys, that was more like elementary school, maybe even middle school to a degree. But when I was in high school, I just really didn't date anybody. I didn't date. I wasn't trying to talk to guys. I was just really into school. I was very school focused, school driven. And so I would say I met my ex in high school. He was actually my neighbor. Are you an ebook lover looking for your next great read? Are you a Christian seeking a Christian thriller? Then I have great news for you. Be Careful What You Pray For is now available exclusively at my online bookstore at shereepublishing.com. This book is 50% off, and it is filled with so many great twists and turns. This book is definitely going to keep you on the edge of your seat. If you're interested, please go download a copy today and enjoy. Bye-bye. So we were actually neighbors. My mom, me and my sister, we lived in this townhome. And he lived right in the next, like literally right over where we lived. And so I want to say, yeah, we met in we actually went to the same high school, but we actually so I started working at McDonald's. That was my first job. We actually met at McDonald's. My first day was his last day at McDonald's. So we had met briefly. I thought he had a crush on my sister initially. So, and again, it wasn't like, oh, I saw him and we were just no, it wasn't like that. I had first met him at McDonald's where I worked. He left, and then we would see each other after school. So I would walk from my high school and he would be walking. And we were a little bit competitive because I would try to get home. So how it started out is we met each other first at McDonald's, and then we both went to the same high school, and we both lived next to each other. So I would be walking home and I would always see him and he would see me. And I'd be like, how he get, like we would meet, like we would see each other at the same place. And I'd be like, how he almost beat me home. So we would always see each other. And then slowly but surely, we started talking. We were talking about, we would just talk about, just basic stuff. We would talk about McDonald's a lot because that's where I worked. That's where I met him. And we would just share stories or whatever. And over time, we became very, very, very close. He was very close to me. We were like inseparable. Like wherever you saw me, you saw him. And I think I met him at like 17. I think maybe I think I met him in 2002. And I think as I'm meeting him, he's actually about to like graduate. I think we spent maybe 1 or 2 years in high school together. I really can't remember. But anyway, we were very close. We got very, very close. We were kids. We would get out of school. I think his last year in school, we started, walking home together. We would talk. We were very ambitious. We had all kinds of dreams, and, we would talk about just different things. So we were very close. Again, at this time, I'm not in church. I just want to emphasize I'm not in church. I don't have any kind of roots in the Bible or the scripture. So I didn't have anything. So at this time, I was very much into astrology. I was kind of dabbling in astrology. I probably have been dabbling in astrology for some time, but I want to say around high school, I started to get more serious about astrology. I just got really into it. And I don't recall him talking about anything spiritual. Like I knew he wasn't in church. I know he didn't have a church background. But we would just see each other around the way, and then we just started to develop really a friendship at first. And then so we were just close. We were very close. And so he graduated, and I graduated like a year later. Again, still very close. We're still, just close. But again, there was nothing, we never really talked about anything from a religious standpoint because I wasn't in any type of religion. I wasn't going to church or anything like that. And I know he wasn't going to church either. So let me fast forward. So we ended up going to the same college together. We ended up going to college together, which I did not want to go to the college that I went to. I wanted to go away to school, but I did not get accepted anywhere. I didn't. So we ended up going to the same community school. And again, we were just inseparable. Like we took classes like the same days. We were just close. And we started kind of just talking more about the future, next steps. And so he was a big Disney kid. He was a big Disney kid. Like he grew up going to Disney World, being in Disney. I never went to Disney. My mom did not have the finances to have us go to Disney, but he was a Disney kid. And I remember around this time in my life, I want to say this is like 2005. No, this is probably like 2006. I'm in school, I'm in college, and we're both going through our own individual different life things. He's dealing with stuff in his home. I'm dealing with stuff in my home. My mom had, she had gotten married. My sister was about to get married. So my life was just changing, and I felt like school was just, gosh, it was just hard. Everything just felt very, very hard. And I remember one day we had gotten out of class and he was like, hey, let's do this thing called the Disney College Program. I had no knowledge of this. I didn't know what this was called, but I said, okay, well, what is it? Because he was like, look, we're both dealing with different things. At that time, I was on academic probation. I was about to, go through some things with school, and one of my English teachers was it was just a really stressful time for me. So he brought up, let's do the Disney College Program. So again, me and him, we're inseparable. We got pretty much the same class. We pretty much have the same classes. We're on the same schedule. Like we're just inseparable. Wherever you saw him, you saw me, and vice versa. So we decided, okay, so I listened to him. I was like, okay, Disney, and it meant coming to Florida. Florida is where I'm at now. And so we applied for the internship. We both got accepted. And let me tell you, you could not tell us anything. We were just like gone. It was so much fun. Like this was probably one of the best times of my life when we got accepted into the college program, because we were like, oh my gosh, we can leave, we can be away from our families, and I had no idea what it was going to be like. I had nothing. And again, I'm not in church, I'm not saved, I don't, nothing. I'm just like adventurous. So we get accepted into the college program. I tell my mom, I tell my family that, I got accepted. And I think that summer of 2006, I came down here. We had these little apartments, because in the college program, I think at the time, I think they still do it now, but we had like our own apartment. I had like one roommate. So I'm independent, because this was pretty much my college experience. Now they did work you, but this was like my experience of being out on my own. So during this time, we're both working, we're both just, we're both making money, we're on our own. And he had his apartment, I had my apartment, and women were separated from the guys and so forth. So you couldn't, I think, unless you were like married, but we had our own apartment. We all had our different things, but I probably looking back, I could see that things started to change. Like we individually started to change. And Disney for me was a new experience. I didn't know anything about Disney, but I'm starting to probably spiritually get a little bit contaminated by like the whole Disney environment, because Disney is very, it's very, dipped in witchcraft. There's a lot of witchcraft in Disney. They don't hide it. Magic kingdom. Well, the Bible teaches us we don't study magic, but I'm around all this different, this different energy of magic. And again, I'm already in astrology. I'm already at this time into astrology, but I think it just kind of got heightened when I came down here. So we both, again, we're very close. We're staying very close to each other, and then we start meeting new people, new friends, and eventually, I'm going to speed up a little bit, eventually we moved in together. Once our college program kind of ended, we were already in Florida. We had made our mind up that we did not want to go back to Maryland. We're both originally from Maryland, and we just decided we're going to stay in Florida. So we get our apartment and we kind of start life together. And, you know, one of the things looking back, we would just always have these fights. We would always have fights. We would always have, and he was definitely a witch. I didn't know anything about any of this until like much later, but I was experiencing the symptoms of him. Because again, I never saw a healthy relationship. I never was taught what healthy relationships were. It was it was just two broken people coming together. Really, it was. But he in particular, he was always very manipulative. And I didn't have the language for it at the time. But he was very, and he was also very instigative. He would always like instigate certain things. Like, I can't really explain it, but he would set things in motion, or he would plant certain seeds in the relationship that would start to come to pass. And I was totally ignorant, totally blind to this stuff, but he was he was also very controlling. This didn't happen right away, but whatever he was into, which I didn't completely understand. And actually the Holy Spirit is reminding me that when we were in high school, he had revealed to me that he was like into some type of, I don't want to call it an occult, but he was into some type of practice, which actually ended up being Wicca. And Wicca is a real thing that people are into. And I think he may have shared that with me at that time, but I didn't know what that was, which is basically witchcraft. And so anyway, we lived together. And again, I'm still into astrology. And then he was just very controlling. He was very manipulative. He was very he liked to play the victim a lot. And I hope I'm making sense with what I'm saying, but he just had these attributes, but he loved to play the victim all the time. I saw him as we, got more independent, as we were both working. He would use, he used people. So like one of the things that we would do a lot is we would travel. We would take trips here, take trips there, and it would just be small things. But he would always, if you did something for him, if he did something for you, he expected you to do something for him. He always worked on like this kind of like a favor system with people. He always used people pretty much. He would always just use people. Very manipulative, very cunning, very kind of crafty like. And again, at this time, I'm not really getting things that he's doing. So we lived together in this apartment because we got an apartment together, and we lived there for about 5 years. And again, we had a lot of ups and downs. It was never like a peaceful relationship. There was a lot of abuse in the relationship. It was a lot of domestic abuse. It was a lot of verbal abuse. It was just a lot of abuse. And I did not realize, and let me say this, because I didn't grow up seeing a lot of strong, healthy relationships, I looked at him really as an idol. That's the best way I could say it. I looked at him more as like an idol. So anything he said, I took it to heart. Like I was very, just very into him, but not in a healthy way. So he was very manipulative, very controlling. He knew that I would take everything he said to heart. So we basically we got this house. He talked me into. So again, I didn't grow up in seeing healthy relationships or anything like that. And I remember my mom. Let me back up a bit. I remember having a conversation with my mom. And again, at this time, we're having sex, we're together, we're not married, but we're doing all the things that married people do. And I remember having a conversation with my mom, and she was telling me, right when we were deciding to buy this house, she was saying that, married people get houses together, not people that are just, in these like boyfriend girlfriend relationship. She said, buying a house is a serious financial commitment. You should be married before you do that. And again, at this time, and I know it was God speaking through her, because she was really trying to warn me. She was really trying to warn me, like, you're going to get yourself into basically some mess. And at this time, I'm ignorant. I'm young. You really can't tell me anything. And I'm just like, yeah, that's something old people do, get married. What's that mean? Like, what's the big deal if I don't get married? Like, I had no thought about marriage, because I didn't think it was a big deal. And so he kind of like aided that idea, because he was like, well, when we get this house, we are married. And I'm just like, but, there's no official wedding, but it was just things that he would say that at that time to me made sense. Like, oh, we're not married, but we got this house. Oh, that's good enough. That's good enough. And so we ended up buying a house together. And that was a true disaster, let me tell you. So we ended up getting this house together. And it's like, what I didn't, again, I'm still spiritually ignorant. I'm still spiritually like messed up, blind. And when we got this house, so we got this house, it was a beautiful home, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, very nice home, like beautiful home. I remember the first thing he did in that house is he some people, when they buy a house, they pray, they bless the home. We didn't do that. He had a spell book, which I didn't know about. Or maybe I knew about it, but again, I'm ignorant. I'm not paying attention. He had a spell book, and I remember him, he basically like blessed the house, but it wasn't like a blessing. It was like a spell or some type of seance that he put over the house. And I'm so blind. I'm not saying anything, because he has this book open, and he speaks basically a curse over the house. Again, I'm blind. I'm not sure what he's doing. And like, even the words, I was like, I didn't understand what he was saying, because it didn't make sense, but it was like some type of like witchcraft spell that he put over the house. And I just remember him always having that spell book. I never read it, but he had a bunch of stuff in that book. And when he was saying what he was saying over the house, it was like a spell. And he also had, God is bringing to my remembrance, he also had like this 5-point star necklace that he would always wear. He would wear it sometimes, but he would wear it. And I remember seeing it. He also loved to burn sage, and he loved to burn incense. And I didn't really like the smell of incense, but like, he always had it burning. And I remember, and God is bringing some things back to my remembrance. We went to Hawaii one year, and Hawaii has a lot of temples. They have a lot of altars everywhere. We were in Waikiki Beach, and I remember we went on this, we went on like some type of tour. There's different, tours you can go on when you go on vacation. And we went and as part of this tour that we went on, we arrived at this temple. Now, again, I'm not saved. I'm not in nobody's church. I'm not reading the scripture. But I remember when we walked into the temple, it was just, and it was really a temple. And they even said it was a temple. First of all, they had all this incense. And like, looking back, it was totally demonic. But it didn't really set right with me, even where I was spiritually, which was dead. Because as people were going into this temple, people were bowing. Like, everybody would walk into this temple and start bowing. And I remember my ex-boyfriend, he bowed. Like, he went in and he started bowing. And I remember just looking at him. I was looking at everybody, and I just did not bow. I didn't bow. I just actually walked out, because it was just something about that place that just didn't sit well with me. But I didn't know what it was. I wasn't, again, I'm not saved. I'm not in the church, but it just felt like off. So he would constantly buy incense, which really it's almost like you're summoning spirits when you have those things going. Like incense to me now, like I haven't done the full research on incense, but I don't burn that stuff. Like for me, that's like you're conjuring up some type of spirit, because he constantly had that stuff going. He had, even when we had an apartment together. I'm good with like Febreze, some scented candles. And I don't mean like to do any kind of ritualistic stuff, but he always would have this incense stuff going. And I never really liked the smell of it, but he always had it going in the apartment. And then he definitely had it going when we bought a house together. So he would always have incense. He had a spell book. He had that 5-point star necklace. We both at this time were into bisexuality. So that's actually one of the things we kind of identified early in our relationship, that we both had attractions to the same sex. At that time, it really wasn't a big deal. But as we got more into the relationship, things just got like weirder and weirder. So he was bisexual. I'm going to give my testimony separately on that, but just to set the stage, we were both like into same-sex attractions. So at one point I had a girlfriend. He was entertaining guys. So that was just to highlight the level of dysfunction. And I know a lot of those guys were probably into the same kind of witchcraft stuff that he was into. But he was just always, he was just very controlling. He was very narcissistic also, very, very narcissistic. And he would tear me down with, and again, we were both physically abusive to one another. So I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't participate in that. We were both physically abusive. It was one year, I think in 2015, I remember we got into this fight, and I remember punching him in the face. And you should never punch somebody in the face. And it hurt so bad. And I remember him getting up, and he was a big guy. I remember him getting up and pushing me into a wall in my bedroom, the bedroom I slept in, because we both had separate bedrooms. And there was a hole in the wall. Like that's how like the force of him pushing me was. And it was just so toxic. And I mean, we did things. We went on vacations. Like, we went to Australia. We went to Mexico. We went to Hawaii. We on the outside looking in, we had this great life. On the outside looking in, we had this great life. I mean, he had a very good position in Disney. At the time, I don't know what he's doing now. I don't follow him now. But at the time when I was with him, he had he was moving up the ranks in Disney. I was, I had different jobs, but we were doing well financially. And we had this, beautiful home, again, 4-bedroom, 3-bath pool home, fully furnished. Everything on the outside looked very good. He was an introvert. So I was, I'm not a very extroverted. He was very extroverted. I'm very introverted. And he would always have people over the house. He was a very grandiose type of personality, like a very showy image type of person. I was not. And I just remember that just wasn't me. That wasn't my personality. But we would always be having fights. When we would go on vacations, we would go places, we would constantly have fights. I mean, violent, like not even physical, but just, we always disagreed. We never agreed on nothing. And it just got to the point where it was like exhausting. Like being with him was so exhausting because he was so manipulative. And one of the things that he would do constantly, because I'm very introverted, but the thing about me that I've had to kind of learn how to get myself out of or be delivered from is I would hold stuff in for a long time, and then I would just blow up. Like I would just like erupt. And so he knew that about me. And he would always just do stuff. He would always like subtly do stuff to like cause me to have like these emotional blow-ups. And that happened all the time. And so it was almost like he wanted people to see me as like crazy, because he was just so emotional. He was so emotionally manipulative. He was very manipulative. And it was just he was very controlling. Like it just got to the point. So let me also add this. He was very, very smart. Like he was very good at numbers. He was very good at like math. Like he was just very good with money. He was good with, so a lot of times because at that time, and he always made me, again, I'm just like, God is bringing back some things to my remembrance. He would always make me feel like less than, like belittle me, like you can't do that, or you're not detailed, or you're not good, and like anytime I made a mistake, oh my gosh, like anytime I made any mistake, he would like make it such a big deal. Like he would just explode. Like if I made a slight mistake, or if something wasn't done right, or if I missed something, he would just like, he would not let it rest. Like if I forgot something, oh, you're so forgetful. Oh, you're just so forgetful. Oh, you don't do this. You don't do that. You shouldn't do this. And you should, like, he was just like, it was so draining. Like, let me give you a concrete example. So again, we took a lot of trips, but it was always me doing the planning of these trips. It was always me like planning the trips and stuff. And he would not do it. And so if I made a mistake, he would, oh, you didn't do that right. And this is why I should do this. And again, very manipulative, like always like beating me down, very controlling, very abusive. And I'm not kidding. Like every time we went anywhere, it was always a fight. Always. We always had tons of fights. Always. And it was draining. Like it just got to the point. So once we got this house, it just got progressively like worse and worse and worse and worse. Like worse. Like he was so draining. He was so abusive. He wouldn't do a lot of stuff around the house. Like he was just, I mean, outside of like his work and stuff, he would do that. But and so here's what really started to happen. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Once I got saved, so I started going to church in 2012. And again, I was not saved. I had not seen any healthy relationships or anything, didn't have any kind of spiritual anything. So I start going to church, and it's starting to minister to me. I'm starting to really crave the things of God. So I get saved in 2012, and everything changed. Like, he was bad before, but after I got changed, it was worse. It was like way worse. He would, like when you're a babe in Christ, there's still a lot of things you're still doing that aren't technically like right. So one of the things that I would do, I was still listening to a lot of secular music. I don't listen to a whole lot of secular music now, but back then it was my regular thing. And he would just, well, how can you be a Christian and you're still listening to, secular music and you're not no Christian? And just constantly beating you. He just constantly like beat me down. I tried to invite him to the church. He would not go. He wasn't interested in anything church. He was not interested in anything Bible. And so for like the last 3 years of our relationship, it was like the worst. It was just the worst. As I got closer to God, as I started getting closer to him, I dealt with, it was just a lot of abuse, a lot of, He would be purposely inconsiderate. He would be purposely mean. He would just say mean things, like just mean things. I remember one time we got into an argument and he said, "I'm going to set the house on fire." He would just say like crazy stuff. And the amount of like emotional just drainage that I would feel on a day-to-day basis, because I didn't understand what I was dealing with. And I remember, and God brought this back to my remembrance as of late. We went to Europe in 2017. And again, I'm in the church. I'm active in church. But again, we are just butting heads. We are just butting heads. And that whole trip, we fought about something. He was so confrontational. That's another thing. Like, he was very difficult to get along with, very confrontational. I always tried to just avoid I did anything to just avoid like a confrontation with him, because he was very confrontational, which really is the Jezebel spirit. But I'll talk about that some other time. But he was just very manipulative, very controlling. And I remember one year, and this got brought to my remembrance as of late. We went to London. And oh, by the way, he was very into Halloween. He was very into I was never really into Halloween, even after I got saved, but he was really into Halloween. He was just into witchcraft, period. I had kind of started backing away. Once I got saved, I kind of backed away from astrology and everything. I got more into the scripture. But he stayed with it. He did not leave. He had tarot. I remember he had tarot cards. He had like a deck of tarot cards. He still kept his spell book. He loved, I'm sorry if I'm jumping around, but a lot of this stuff is coming back to my remembrance. He loved the type of stuff that we would watch together. And this did not really start happening probably until the apartment, but more so when we bought our house together. He loved anything that had to do with witchcraft. So his favorite shows were like Ghost Whisperer. He loved that show. He loved Charmed. He liked this show called The Good Witch. He loved Disney had some type of mystical witch. Like, he was into like the mystical stuff. Anything mystical he loved. But I remember those three shows: Charmed, The Good Witch, The Ghost Whisperer. He loved that stuff. He loved it. He loved those shows. I didn't watch that stuff, but he loved it. He loved it. And I remember when we went to London. And what's the other show? Lord of the Rings. Just anything dealing with like the occult. And Disney is really all occult. Anything Disney is occult, automatic. But I remember when we went to London, we went to this haunted house. And I had no business being there, but I was in the church, but I just wasn't where I am now. Like, more spiritually alert. I was in church, but I wouldn't consider myself spiritually alert. So we went to this haunted house. I never forget. He wanted to do this. Like, he was like, we got to go to this haunted house. And I remember it was like right under the London Bridge. And we went into this haunted house. And I don't think I wanted to go, but I went because obviously he wanted to go. And there was something that because it was kind of like a tour guide thing, like some type of activity. And one of the thing is, and it was all dark. It was just wicked, like totally wicked. And I remember one of the tour guides or something was like, who wants to play the witch? I need a witch. And I remember him saying, and again, this was brought to my remembrance as of late or recently. And he said, I want to play the witch. I want to be the witch. I really, really want to be the witch. And I just remember him saying to me over and over that he was a witch. He was a witch. And again, I didn't even think a man could be a witch. I didn't know. I mean, I guess now it would be the term warlock, but he constantly revealed to me that he wanted to be a witch. And again, this is not stuff I paid attention to, but it's like he just got more and more demonic. as I got closer to God, as I started to really get more firm in my, in my faith, he just got more and more demonic. And I remember him hating me going to church. Like, he hated church. He hated anything that had to do with church. If I tried to talk to him about the Bible, he would reject it. He didn't want to hear it. And so it just got to the point where I remember God vividly telling me, stop talking about the Bible with him. Like, stop talking about it. Like, wipe the dust from your feet. Do not talk about the Bible anymore with him. So I stopped talking about scripture with him. Because at first, because I was overzealous. Like, I was overly zealous. I would talk about the Bible. I would talk about things I was learning in church. I would try to, talk to him. He did not want to hear it. And I remember, or it would lead to an argument. So I remember vividly God telling me 1 year, do not talk about the Bible anymore with him. Like, wipe the dust from your feet. So I stopped talking about the scripture with him. I stopped talking with him about it. And then in 2019, God spoke to me so plain. He said, you need to leave. You need to leave this house. You need to leave this house. You need to get out. And I'm like, huh? Like, what? Because I knew, looking back, he wouldn't have left that house. But God instructed me to leave this house. And I remember at the time, I did not really have a job. I was only doing Uber. And I remember, like, God, how is this going to work? It was July of 2019. I remember vividly. So, and this is a normal day. I'm not in church or anything. I'm in my house. I was walking to the refrigerator. And I remember God telling me, you need to leave. You need to leave him. You need to leave this house. Leave. And so I said, okay, God, if I'm leaving him, you have to help me. You have to, help me get a job. Because before I had actually tried to leave before, but I didn't have the money. I didn't have the strength to leave him. I just kind of stayed. And this time I heard God so plain. He said, you need to leave him. So I agreed. In that moment, as God was talking to me, I agreed to leave. And shortly after I agreed, I got called for a job opportunity. I would say maybe a week or two later, a job was lined up for me. I got, I did the interview. I got accepted. I got the offer. And August of 2019, I remember going, and I didn't tell him I was leaving either. I didn't say anything. So at this time, his father was very sick. And I think earlier that July, I had went to Cleveland. That's where his family was. I had went to Cleveland with him. I didn't want to go. I actually wanted to stay and continue to do Uber, because that's how I was getting paid. But he always wanted me around because I paid for everything. He always wanted me around because I was very resourceful and I paid for stuff. He didn't even have credit cards. So I go with him to Cleveland, and it was hot that summer. I remember being real hot. And just to speed everything up, he stays with me, because I only stay, I'm not being, well, I guess I am kind of bougie, but I only stay at nice places where I feel safe. So of course he stayed with me. I had rented a car. He used the car. And this was typical. This was normal. This is how he would always, this is just how he was. He was a moocher. So I remember being at his siblings' house, because I think he had like 4 siblings. He was the oldest. And I remember being at their house, and they were like in the hood. They were like in the hood for real. And I just remember looking at, his siblings, that his siblings had kids. And they were just kind of like ghetto acting. I don't know how else to say this, but I just felt like I don't want to be a part of this. Like, I remember just sitting at his sister's house, or his whoever this, because they all lived together. And I remember just sitting there looking at his family like, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be a part of this. And I don't know if this was before God had told me to leave or after, but I remember just shaking my head like, Monique, you don't want to be a part of this. And long and short, we left. Once I got the job, the offer, his father actually died. And I had already known what God had told me to do. And so I started this new job. I was making preparations to leave, to basically get my own apartment. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I remember God just telling me. And when I tell you, there was like an unleashing of like attack on me from him. He was just very barbaric. Like once he and I don't know how this conversation came about. Yeah, I know how it came about. Thank you, Holy Spirit. So after his father died, I remember God telling me, he had asked me to do something for his dad, or he had asked me to do something. And God said to me so clear, why are you investing so much time in this man and he's not even your husband? And when I heard those words, it was like my life changed, like a light bulb went off. And I'm like, yeah, why am I spending all this time on him? Because up until that point, we were together all the time. We were not married, but I had this house with him with my name on it, not his name. His name wasn't on the mortgage. I had just done all this. And, I'm helping him go to school. He got his master's degree. I'm putting things that I want to do on the back burner. Like I wanted to get my project management certification, and every time I would go for it, I would fail, or I wouldn't accomplish that goal because it was always about him. And I was always pushing my goals to the side for him. And so when God said that to me, I was like, oh, you're right, God. I shouldn't be spending my time like this. So that's when I had kind of made up my mind that I was leaving. And I had tried before to leave, but I didn't have the strength. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the confidence. So I had told him I was looking for, I had told him, hey, I'm going to be leaving. I had just started this job, this new job. And I was like, this job is going to be very demanding. And I knew I needed to get away from him. And so I told him I was leaving, and he was so pissed. He was so pissed off. He actually said, I'm giving you 2 weeks to leave. Now, mind you, this is my house. My name is on the mortgage, but he said, I'm giving you 2 weeks to leave. And I said, okay. So I looked at it like, okay, I wasn't mad, and I didn't argue with him. I remember God just saying, don't argue. Don't be confrontational with him, because he was very confrontational with me. But God was like, just keep quiet, just keep moving, keep going. Don't try to pick any fights with him. Just leave. So fast forward, I get this apartment. Didn't even think I was going to get the apartment, but God just opened that door for me. I got this apartment and I left. I left that house. That's how God delivered me. He delivered me through grace, through his mercy, through his goodness, through his favor. And when I got that apartment, I remember the day that I was moving in, because there was just so much going on at that time in my life. I didn't have no furniture in this apartment. The only thing I had come into the apartment was a bed. Because I remember talking to God, like, God, I could just bring some of the furniture from the house to my apartment. He said, don't bring anything. He said, don't even bring a fork. He didn't want me to bring anything from that house. And I know why now, because it was spiritually contaminated. It was, he put a spell on that house. He did something. And I remember God just saying, no, like, don't bring anything. And so my apartment just had a bed. I had bought all new things. And it was like my life had started to blossom after leaving him, because, well, and when I say this, and I'm not exaggerating, my life really took off when I left him. It's like God just propelled me. Like after I left that house, and it was total warfare getting away from him. Total warfare. Like it was hell. It was hell getting away from him. That's why I don't recommend anybody moving in, especially if you're not married. I don't recommend buying any property with nobody that you're not married to. That's just me personally. It was hell. Like, he didn't want to sell the house. He couldn't afford to stay in the house, but he didn't want to sell the house. I had to basically file a lawsuit. It took 2 years almost to get all of that settled. It was such a nightmare, and it was so draining, like draining. But and he was very manipulative with the lawyer. He was very manipulative with the real estate agent. He tried to delay it as long as possible, not to get the house sold. And it was just pure hell. And I didn't even mention the biggest thing. Like, there was a water leak, November of 2019. I'm sure he was behind it, but there was a huge water leak in the house. This house had never had any damage, never. And I remember because I was having surgery on my eye. And long and short, my mom was down here with me. She was basically nursing me. She was taking care of me for like 2 weeks. And once I got back on my feet, I remember it was around Thanksgiving Day. So my mom has just left. I'm trying to just, relax. And I remember the Spirit of God telling me, go to that house, go to that house, go to that house. And I'm like, but God, I'm tired. I just want to rest. And I go to the house, and as soon as I open the door, there is water everywhere. I had a retinal detachment surgery. So there's a gas bubble in my eye. So I can't slip, I can't fall or anything. This is one of those surgeries, if anybody knows anything, you can lose your vision permanently. So I'm in flip-flops. We down here in Florida, so I'm in flip-flops. And when I opened the door, it was water everywhere, and he was nowhere to be found. I'm blowing up his phone. I'm calling him, nowhere to be found, which basically led me to believe he was involved. So he tried to destroy this house. And luckily, through the grace of God, I got a word from God, and he told me to go to the house and check on things. So, and there was water, like in the bathroom that I used to have, there was water shooting up. Like there was water like shooting up. So I turned off the water, stopped the water, but there was water everywhere. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I need a mop. Like my mind is like, oh, I need to mop this up, but you can't mop that up. Like it was literally like 3 feet of water. It was it was just a huge water leak in the whole house. So later that night, I was actually able to get somebody out there to start cleaning up the water that was damaged, that had damaged pretty much the whole house. And they had said to me that had you not called us, had we not gotten out here when we did, this whole house would have caught fire. And that, as I'm sitting here talking this out, he had said that before, that he would set the house on fire. So he was very demonic, very evil, very wicked. I pray, even to this day, I pray that he gets saved. But witches are real. Like witchcraft is real. People who are into the occult, that stuff is real. People who do spells, that stuff is real. And it was only through the grace of God that I got delivered out of that. Because I'm telling you, without the power of God, I don't think I would have had the strength to leave. And I'm talking out, this was a 14-year relationship. I was with him for 14 years, and it was just hell. It was really hell. I mean, I would lose jobs. I would get jobs. I would lose jobs. I would see progress, no progress. Like my life was always up and down. Like it was never like consistent. It was just, it just was hell. So I know I said a whole lot. I know I shared a lot. But anybody who's in a relationship like that, you need to get out, because it's not going to get better. It is totally not God's plan for you. And I thank God every single day. Every day I thank God that I'm not where I was, because let me tell you, if I had stayed in that relationship, only God knows, I don't think I would have made it. I don't think I would be where I'm at, because it wouldn't have ended well. So yes, that's my testimony. I dated a witch. It was pure hell. I'm going through a lot of deliverance now. I'm dealing with, I'm healing a lot of wounds, and I'm just healing a lot of wounds, and I thank God for that. But if you're in a relationship like this, you need to get out of it, and it's really only the power of God that can help you be delivered from this, because this is very, I mean, when you're dealing with a witch or any type of witchcraft manipulation, it's totally demonic. And you know, I had to recover my self-esteem. I'm learning self-love. I had to basically relearn myself, because the amount of damage I went through being in that type of relationship, it just kills you. It kills your self-esteem. It kills your self-worth. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that this testimony helps somebody get free, because God wants us free. He don't want us bound. You know, he don't want us bound. He wants us free, and he came to set the captives free. So I pray that this testimony helps someone. Again, I know I shared a lot, but we are called to peace as believers. We're called to peace as children of God. He wants you to have peace. All right. So I hope that makes sense. I hope this blesses you. And until next time, catch me on the next episode of Real Faith. I love you guys so much. Be blessed, be safe. And until next time, bye-bye.